Oh, hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. I think I did it. I think I did.
She did it. She did it. And we did it yesterday. We had a debut. This was a Patreon exclusive talking about the real controllers behind El Elyon. And who is perhaps the most powerful person in his life? I'll give you a few guesses. You may not know his history, and the family history is very, very interesting indeed. Again, Patreon exclusives going up multiple times a week. Some weeks there's 4 of them, 3 or 4, and other weeks there might be 2, but there's always an exclusive every week, a deep dive into something interesting. If you look at the immigration stats, let's look at the UK. 40% of immigrants in the UK have only been there for 10 years or less. That's a huge, huge amount. I mean, you could just see this. This is, boom, skyrocketing. Massive amount of immigrants flowing into the UK. In 2022 to 2023, 1,218,000 new foreigners were allowed in. UK's population is like 66 million. So proportionately, that's enormous. And 500,000 signed on to universal credit. 41%. This is obviously a very expensive endeavor. Of course, that's all relative. That is always relative to certain numbers that, again, are thrown out there. And I just don't think that most of humanity pays too much attention to things. Did you know there are now more illegal fighting age males in the UK than there are soldiers in the British Army? Let that sink in. The British Army is outnumbered by illegal fighting age males on their home turf in the UK. Let that sink in. Then in Chicago here, we have a woman that was suspicious of one of the people living in her apartment building. And so when they ended up checking it out and looking, he had C4, he had weapons, he had explosives. You know, he was somebody planning something, perhaps. She may have saved a lot of lives. So yeah, absolutely. Was this a sleeper cell in Chicago that just wasn't activated? Well, the FBI director, Christopher Wray, says China has sleeper cells all over the United States, strategically positioned around critical infrastructure, lying in wait to wreak havoc. What do you bet that they will be activated at some point in 2025? I would say that's a very, very high probability with everything that we have going on. You know, here we have a nice offer from Russia. New Russian region offers sanctuary to Californians. Ordinary Americans whose livelihoods were destroyed by raging wildfires can now find shelter in Kherson, according to the governor. The governor of Russia's Kherson region, Vladimir Saldo, has extended an offer to shelter Californians displaced by ongoing wildfires, provided they have not supported the Ukrainian military or the government in Kiev. Isn't this interesting? Despite the ongoing blatantly anti-Russian policy of the United States, we fully understand that natural disasters don't care who you are or what you do. So said Kherson Governor Vladimir Saldo to TASS. The California fires have left many ordinary residents homeless. Therefore, our region is ready to welcome any American citizen who has lost their home and livelihood. Didn't really give specifics, but, you know, it again is interesting. We've seen Russia offering, again, to people that are Americans to come if you're tired with a certain, government structure. Now, of course, the government structure is literally going to be changing in 6 days, or at least the apparent outward government structure is going to be changing in 6 days. And here you go. Biden just gave $3.5 billion to Ukraine's government pension fund. California fire victims, $770 one-time check per household, which is still better than what people got in North Carolina because it was on a loan basis. Why are we putting up with this government? Why? That is a big question. I think it's a big test. in so many ways. And, humanity is failing the IQ test here. People are waking up, but it's coming too slowly. It's coming way too slowly. Meanwhile, here you have another person being arrested for arson, actively lighting fires. There's been so many of these. Now, here's again the unfortunate test of IQs that has been, sorely being failed in all around the world, really. But let's just look at the U.S. You'll have people that see a few people starting fires like this, and then they'll just say, well, hey, it's all arson. Or people that will say, well, it's those devices they put on the houses. Or others that will say, it's the lights that come down from the sky. Well, what's wrong with all the above? Why does it have to be one thing and not another? See, we're cultivated to constantly pick sides and argue with each other over the minutia instead of getting together and let's figure out how we could change this. That's really what's going on here. They always are operating from a divide and conquer perspective when even though you might have people that agree that say something is not natural, and again, you'll have other sources saying it's natural. Then we get divided into camps saying, well, it's light from the sky. Well, it's those devices on houses. No, it's just random sleeper cell arsonists, or otherwise others, maybe with drug issues, maybe with mental issues. It's all the above going on. It's one concerted plan that's really happening here. Now, that's just my opinion, and this is all completely for entertainment purposes again, as you have to disclaim anything like this in this world because, again, the system is the ones that are ultimately at the source of all these issues.
Right. And I'm looking at it, and watching them give people all kinds of arguments to have. And we really need to rise above those arguments. And if we are part of that argument, rise up and realize, okay, well, what is it that we all have in common? And we all have in common that we don't like the land grabs because, okay, for right now it's California. When is it going to be your front yard? I think we need to stand up for each other and we need to make sure that this is not going to happen. And the other thing I think we could come together and rally on is, this is to bring in the new technology, the cell cities, the 10-minute cities, the 15-minute cities. There's probably already a lot of people who are going to live in those. However, if we're not supporting the AI that's coming out, then maybe that would be helpful. Maybe if we do our best to drag our feet so that we're not getting the next new phone. Oh, by the way, iPhone 16, I've heard not good things about that one. So I would never go near an iPhone 16. I'll just have to let you guys look that up and find out why. But finding, these older phones and holding on to your older phones, holding on to the slower way of life and reverting back. I mean, they've given us so many things to move forward on, and our quality of life, despite all of these new ways of living, is going down, 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 down. So I think we really need to focus in on what is it do we truly want, and stop fussing with each other about, how they're going to take us down, because they're just going to do it. That's their job. We need to rise above that and figure out what's the bigger common denominator that we need to glob together on.
Yeah, and you have a return of strong winds coming, and today is going to be a particularly dangerous day, and this week too. And there's no relief really in sight. Now we know that weather can be manipulated. That's just a fact. And again, to debate that in this world at this point in time is just ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. It's silly, and it's outright stupid to debate that. Can weather be controlled? Of course, there's so much documented declassified projects, and then you even just simply have China and the U.S. saying, by 2025, this year, China wants to control the weather. And so the Pentagon has said the same thing. By this year. Why do you think that year so arbitrarily? Because, again, it's all because of treaties. See, as you can see, China will start controlling the weather by 2025. They've been doing it. And the U.S. too. Artificial rain to cover area 22 times bigger. Can we see that if they really wanted to, you could wash these fires away. Completely wash them away. They would be a non-issue if they really wanted to. They don't want to. It's just obvious. This is part of the bigger picture here. Meanwhile, when they're sending more money abroad than, giving back to our own friends, family, and neighbors, what's the purpose there? Well, ultimately, they do want you mad at the outgoing administration because they want you to get fully behind the incoming administration, which is also controlled by the same entities. This is part of the bigger picture. So, again, the fires will probably continue to get worse. This is Oxnard, so this is going up a little bit farther north, and we see a fire breaking out there now. What caused it? We could debate and argue over it, but, it's the bigger picture. Again, they're envisioning Olympics in 2028. They're envisioning a completely redone LA, or at least sections of it. And then we have those numbers, those DEAGEL numbers. Is anybody wondering? Wow, the uptick is coinciding with the year those numbers give us a very grim outlook for certain areas, namely the U.S. Again, we are increasing in population only for one reason, and that's net migration in. And again, a large percentage of that is obviously not legally here. This is Pacific Palisades fires destroying Los Angeles, and you see a water main broke or somebody had a fupa there. Welcome to California. You got water where you don't need it, fires burning other things down, and nothing is working properly. Yeah, I mean, California, I think if you surveyed the whole U.S. and each state and said which state has the worst government, it would probably be California. Which state is most beautiful? There'd probably be a lot of people that would vote for California. It has the most potential in so many ways, and yet it's literally being flushed down the toilet, so to speak. And here you have the LA Fire Department repair yard. Why is there so much equipment in there just sitting there? Don't they have mechanics to get this up and running? Incompetence, because, incompetence, well, we could say that, and, that's the first thing that comes to mind. But when you're sending so much money abroad at a local level, I mean, this is it, at a local level, LA, sending money to Israel and Ukraine, sending equipment, sending, things they sorely need now, while you have people setting garbage on fire left and right. I do think a lot of this is obviously, in some ways, it's psychological testings to see how you could get people to do things for you in more ways than one. I really, really wonder how much of this is, in some ways, a mind control experiment. It certainly is a psyop, but it's very real. And here you go. You got to be worried about leaving your garbage out because somebody might set it on fire. And this is a man lighting a fire in Melrose, California. There's been dozens of these, dozens and dozens. Now are they all sleeper cells? I don't think so. I think it's, again, an assortment of things. You got some people with mental issues, some people just angry at life, and yeah, there might be some sleeper cells. This defies logic. How could one house, and it doesn't have a blue roof, how could that still be standing when you have fire that melts, metal all around it? It completely defies logic. But then how did they know exactly which homes would burn down? And how come they canceled their fire insurance policies right before that? Exact neighborhoods, yeah, the answers are obvious. This has to be the only explanation anybody with even a semi-logical mind would have is that, this was basically preordained, pre-planned. Again, patches of grass still very green, not even singed, and complete structures destroyed, as Dr. Jane says. Yeah, wildfires, my bumpkin. Ah, yes. And meanwhile, Gavin Newsom, I for copyright reasons, I didn't share, but there was a cute little video of him with a little reggae sound going because he was fidgeting so much. He's so nervous. I don't know if he's off one of his meds or something. Either that or he's just extremely nervous. But he was talking about speculators coming in to buy up properties. Well, good news, guys. There might be some people that want to buy your houses. Yeah, we could understand that. Again, Ukraine, Israel, and everything else that's going on is part of a much, much bigger plan. And it's still rolling around right in front of us. And everything that's happening in California, as bad as it is, 156,000 Western North Carolina homes were destroyed or damaged. 12,000 California homes at the time of this post. And there's really no help going to Western North Carolina to speak of. I did live a year in this area, and wonderful people. I felt really as safe in that area at that time as anywhere I've ever lived. And the people were very friendly. Just loved it. Really, really did love it. For whatever reason, it wasn't going to be the place that we settled. But I do understand that even though we're in a spot that we feel perfectly content, in these times you have to realize, it is, after all, the apocalypse. You might have to up and go. It's just part of the bigger picture. But at the same time, you can protect yourself just with your intent and just with putting out there to the universe that you are protected, and ask for help from those positive forces, again, that may be unseen, but are very, very real. This is why we have all those amazing stories of people, and I don't mean it in the sense of that one house that didn't burn, but you never know. There are angelic beings, and there are beings that will protect you, and you can do that yourself. There's no dogma needed. This is, again, dogma is a tool of the system to divide us, and yet you'll find miracles happen in all different traditions, even amongst those that are non-religious.
Coming together, so important, and figuring out, well, what can you do and what are we going to do moving forward? And I really see the same answer coming back is working on yourself, working on making yourself whole, working on your traumas, because if we're not working on those traumas that we've had to deal with all of our lives, it's going to make it that much harder to work with your neighbors, because people get upset, they get triggered, and because of trauma. So if we're able to work on ourselves and be a solid individual and ready to work with our neighbors in our neighborhoods, then we're going to do better. We are absolutely going to do better, but we have to get really serious. And the Galactics, they continue to bring it up about the diet. Our diets are just, they're nutritious. I mean, the food that they put out there for people to make it easy to eat, that is not okay. We cannot continue to go down that road, because in a grid down situation, you are going to be so sick. And then the foods that are offered, these quick foods that are offered, those are not good either. So we have to look and prepare organically for a situation that we can sustain in long term, because I do feel that they are going to give us a really hard time, one area to the next, to the next, to the next, and we're going to have to work through it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think about our personal lifestyle and, the way we are kind of training for Armageddon. And how do you train for Armageddon? It's multifaceted. We hit weights 4 or 5 days a week. We do cardio. We do things like exercise with oxygen therapy. We do ozone. we watch what we eat, and then every single day we're doing meditation and Qigong. So you address it body, mind, and spirit. We don't get inebriated. We're not on any pharmaceuticals, and we don't use any any mind-altering substances per se. So, we're as clean and sober as you can be in these times, and these times demand that. So, again, it's a case where we have to rise up and become the best us. This is what this time is calling for. And it literally is. It's more than just for yourself in this life, because we are setting ourselves up always for the next life. And that's part of the realization that we have a series of lives. We have many lives. Many entities will have countless lives. And this is part of what makes our channel a little different, because we're always looking at everything, even the news, from the spiritual perspective. Again, you'll have people in some of the quote-unquote New Age circles that will want to say, well, just cut yourself off from everything. You can still live in the middle of LA and you'll be just fine. I don't think so. I mean, in reality, I just don't see how we can be surrounded by a sea of these negative entities and energies and still rise up and become our best. Just sharing from our perspective, again, we moved to the edge of a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, and the guides were saying, for your own spiritual development, you would be best served to go farther out. And you could stay where you were, because we could have that completely paid off relatively quickly, living in the ghetto, so to speak. But it wasn't going to be optimal for our spiritual development. So we ended up going farther out. And this is the case. You're going to have to make some decisions. Do you want what's of this world? And this is a big decision. I think of one amazing young lady with a tremendous amount of potential, that was in the middle of D.C. and was choosing to stay in D.C. and yet spiritually absolutely could be a leader in the times to come, and especially when we get past this point in time and we start to think more clearly about how do we rebuild things, not what the system wants. How do we rebuild things the way that makes sense for a Bronze Age society? And yet, making the choice to stay there in the middle of, in the middle of the darkness, is a choice that some people will make, and other people will say, no, I can't do it anymore. I need to be out more in the countryside, or at least in a smaller city or town where the frequencies aren't so intense like you feel in DC or London, or Paris, or a lot of these other places. Meanwhile, over in Romania, their constitutional court last month annulled the presidential election because they didn't like the results, and they're going to have a better election again at some point in the future. You are living in a dictatorship. That is the bottom line. This is just absolute BS. Again, they were going against the war effort in Ukraine, or at least the one that was ended up leading in the voting. And they don't want that. The power structure wants a full WW3. But Ukraine itself will probably see some sort of uprising this year, because it's coming to the breaking point. I would not be surprised at all if you have a civil war develop inside Ukraine, with people that are just tired of the leadership and the nonstop deaths. Ultimately, what's going to happen in many nations, if not even perhaps a majority, is that you're going to have the people overthrowing the governments ultimately, and that is, it's just kind of inevitable. $30 billion to Israel, $100 billion to Ukraine, $770 to the LA fire victims, and a loan to those in Western North Carolina. Is it fair? No, it's not fair, and partially it is being done to tick you off. because again, they always want the negative frequencies. We have to simply, we cannot thrive in this system. So this system has to be replaced in its entirety. Congressman Buddy Carter just introduced a bill to abolish the IRS, repeal income tax, payroll taxes, estate and gift taxes, 132-page proposal. He would, however, institute another sales tax, very large, kind of like in a Canadian type of way, another 23%. I personally think it's ridiculous how we get taxed over and over again for the same things. You know, every year you have to pay off government officials to continue living in your house, even when your house is paid off. It's ridiculous. You know, again, the French had a revolution for less than what we have going on right now. Same thing with the original American Revolution. The difference is people have too much aluminum and barium flowing through their brains, and they can't think straight. This is why we need to detox. Homes are piling up in the market in Florida, and four areas in particular are being hard hit. New Smyrna Beach. Yeah, I really like New Smyrna Beach. Palm Coast, I lived there for a while. Panama City and Gainesville. It's, Florida's market is kind of unique. It is a second home market for many, many people. The storms are scaring the crap out of people now. And then the insurance, because, again, I myself was faced with, I found a house dirt cheap. This is going back like 15 years ago in Florida. However, I couldn't pay for it in cash because I didn't have the cash. The financing wouldn't be possible because of the flood insurance. And this is just the reality. So it makes for a very hard market. The insurance companies, as you know, it's going to be part of what nudges home ownership into the past, because ultimately they want you owning nothing. And, they will be happy. They're going to tell you you're going to be happy, but they will be happy if that's the case. 40% of people could develop dementia after 55 at this point in time. That number has just blown apart. It is such an increase. What do you think could have happened in the last handful of years that would lead to this, number more than doubling? Again, aluminum and barium, there are still the fake clouds. Tennessee outlawed that, and we need every state to outlaw it. Now, it still may be happening in Tennessee, but at least when it's outlawed, you're making some progress. You have to detox, especially heavy metal detoxes. Then you got handlers or something. This is from a long time ago. Why is this man staring intently, focused intently at the speaker? The reality is, again, possession is very real. And if you want to delve deep, you'll realize we are deep into a psychic war. There is a absolute psychic war that's going on the biggest level. You could call it a spiritual war. And yeah, absolutely, there are humans with abilities that you would deem paranormal, but they're not really paranormal. They've always been there. Some people are more gifted than others, and often they are pulled into the power structure because absolutely the dark matrix is looking to gobble up every talent they could, and then train to be handlers and keep people online and keep people saying exactly what they need to say according to the system. Now, this one, they're showing a woman who, now I don't know if this is artificially done or not. This is at a Harris rally, and check out the eyes. They could have done this, but the point is, not even every human in the crowd is truly human, and that's always been the case. We're not alone here. The real handlers are not Homo sapiens sapiens. They can look like it. Again, the Bible will tell you people have entertained angels unaware. And that translation of angel really just goes down to be messenger. They've entertained messengers from the control system, which ultimately, what are we talking about? Yes, we're talking about extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, beings that live inside the earth, and are earth beings, beings that live under the sea, like, again, Dagon, Owans, those people. And again, as I had said earlier, there are lands beyond Antarctica. And somebody said, oh, you're mentioning the ice wall. That's an FBI PSYOP. No, I didn't mention ice wall. I just said there's lands beyond, again, beyond Antarctica that we're not allowed to see. This is where, again, people are so programmed that they think they hear something that they don't hear. And, they comment on it, but they didn't even hear it. They're just assuming because it's already been programmed into their minds so much that it's an automatic play button.
And it starts in school. So people learn something and they totally believe they're right. And if they hear something contradictory, they really get upset and they push back and they feel they need to be angry and they think they need to correct people and teach people. But one thing I've learned in this work is to always remain teachable, always remain open, because things are not as they appear to be. And when you travel down this road and you watch the awakening happen and you watch one veil after the next, after the next, after the next come off and new information come in, then, you're able to release and let go of those solid teachings that you thought were solid and leave yourself open to the possibilities. And plus, when you do that, you open up your world because you don't want to be closed off from possibilities. You definitely want your world open right now. So when you hear things that you disagree with or you've heard contrary to, don't worry about it. Don't be stressed about it. Don't argue about it. Just wonder about it. And when you really bring out that ability to wonder, your world gets bigger. And it's actually very, very beautiful.
Absolutely. Here in Kenya, they found an object that they say is some sort of space debris. It could have been from a rocket. Maybe it's one of Elon's. We could always say it's Elon's, in these times. Oh, Starlink, whatever. Yeah. Or it could be maybe from some visitors too. I mean, that is always a possibility. It sure looks like some sort of gear. Again, they found it when it was red and hot. So authorities are looking for other pieces. But the reality is, too, as we've shared, many things that are said to be comets are not comets. Many things that are said to be asteroids are not asteroids. Many are, but many aren't. And there is a galactic war underway. That's the bigger reveal. This is a galactic war underway. And here you have a mommy with her baby. Again, life will get through it. We'll get through it. You got to keep your frequency high. You have to work on becoming the best version of yourself, mind, body, spirit. It's all about that right now. So we want to thank you guys. And as always, source, bless, and namaste.
Namaste.